Wolfman is the new horror movie written and directed by Leigh Whannell, and it's about this man Blake and his family who go out to this cabin in the middle of the woods where he used to go to when he was a young kid, but things get turned upside down when they see this mysterious creature roaming in the woods. But when they discover that one of them is infected by something, they begin to realize that what they were scared of outside might actually be inside now. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on push notifications if you like these kind of videos, but let's get into the review. I had the very fortunate opportunity of being able to go to the set of this movie and watch some of it be filmed. I had the amazing opportunity to be able to interview the cast, the director, an amazing experience. But don't worry, that's not going to affect my review. I'm not going to be biased towards being able to interview the cast. That was just an amazing experience, and I had amazing conversations with them. But as for what I think about the movie, it was one of my more anticipated movies of 2025. I absolutely love Leigh Whannell as a director. I love Upgrade. I love The Invisible Man. So I was very much excited for this one. It's the new Universal monster movie, the first one being Invisible Man, which was very good. And I love Leigh Whannell's direction and his overall idea on modernizing the story of a Universal classic monster. In The Invisible Man, it was about leaving an abusive relationship and being trapped with that anxiety of being stalked by your stalker. And this one, it's about the idea of seeing someone change in front of you at a rapid rate. So the concepts of what were going behind the scenes of making Wolfman was really getting me interested. Unfortunately, I was a tad bit disappointed in the final product. Now, that isn't to say that I didn't enjoy the movie. I did enjoy the movie, and for the most part, there were things that I did like a lot, and there were some things that I didn't like a lot. Now, I really like the concept of these movies. I like the idea of taking the classic monsters that we know from the 40s and modernizing them and giving them a new light, giving them a new home, giving them a new reason to be in a 21st century movie. I love Leigh Whannell's direction. I love how he can take a story and really just elevate it to a certain extent, and he did it so well in Upgrade and The Invisible Man, and I still think he did a great job with Wolfman. The prosthetics are great, and the setting is really eerie. It takes place pretty much in one setting throughout the entire thing, except for like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, but for the most part, it all takes place in like one night, and it's pretty daunting. Now, after seeing the movie, I was a little bit on edge on the fact that they were releasing so much of this movie. Like, one of the main things is that right after I saw it, because I had seen it early, they released the werewolf transformation scene on YouTube. Like, it was so confusing as to why they released that, because that was a pivotal part of the movie. And I think the reason they did that is to really try and get audience members to go see this movie, and they don't even need to release that. I still think this movie is worth seeing in theaters. It's not as great as I wanted it to be, but it's a little bit weird that they released that out of all the things that they could have released, because the movie, like the idea of this movie being about the Wolfman, yes, we understand that the transformation is going to happen at some point, but when it came to this story, the transformation was a lot more emotional rather than us knowing that, you know, this person can just transform into a werewolf. That's not what this movie's about. This movie's about an infection that takes hold of someone's body, and over the course of a night, they transform into this monster that we just don't recognize anymore. And there's some things I like about that, and there's also some things that I don't like about that. Let's talk about what I didn't like about that first. Now, a lot of the movie was rushed. I think the weakest part of the movie was the script. It opens up, and the first 15 to 20 minutes is so rushed. We're supposed to be under the impression that there's something wrong with this family. There's supposed to be some sort of problem with the husband and wife. They're having, you know, relationship problems, and we're supposed to understand that. But they really don't give us a reason to grasp onto that idea that they're having, you know, relationship problems. Yes, they have like 2 moments of bickering, but hardly anything. And there really isn't something, there wasn't like a mention of something that happened in the past that made them stop like talking and loving each other. And it was just a little weird that we segue from that information all the way into this like hour and 20 minutes of pure just like horror of the transformation process. And I think it actually is quite an emotional movie, because there's a point throughout it where, you know, I think it's really cool how they did the Wolfman perspective against the human perspective, and that was pretty sad. Not going to get into too much spoilers, but the movie is emotional in some moments, but I don't think that it was there wasn't a reason to really be like, oh yeah, this family is like really messed up, like this poor daughter, like having to deal with like the stress and emotional problems with the husband and wife. There really wasn't that. I wasn't convinced that there were actually problems. And throughout the movie, I actually wasn't even convinced that they were married. I mean, it was very weird. And I think they could have opened up the movie with a lot more information that pushes us into the movie. I can understand the idea of them wanting to push the story into that craziness for the last hour and 20 minutes, but it happens way too fast. Also, the movie is pretty predictable. I don't know if the movie wanted it not to be predictable, but it seemed like it was revealing things that were like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this happened. But for the most part, it was pretty predictable throughout the entire thing. Now, what I did like about the Wolfman character is that I did appreciate how Leigh Whannell went about crafting Wolfman as a completely different character than what Blake was like. And I like I mentioned previously, I like how they did the how Wolfman hears things and how humans hear things. It makes it pretty sad. But my biggest issue with the whole idea of, this person changing rapidly in front of these people is that I could understand if they had attached this idea and concept to a story about a man that's like, let's say he's like mentally or emotionally abusive, or he's an alcoholic. And although he's an alcoholic, he really, really, really is trying to be a better person, but ultimately is changing at a rapid stage. And for example, like his daughter, his wife are starting to see him as a monster. And that would have been more of an emotional punch to see this man actually transform into the werewolf, transform into this person that they don't recognize anymore. But Blake, Christopher Abbott's character's name, who is the husband and father, it's just this man. And there wasn't any like emotional push to really make us be like, oh my gosh, he's changing this rapid in front of them. Like he seemed like a good guy. Like he seemed like a head on his shoulders. Like he just seemed like a good guy. And I was going into the movie expecting him to have some sort of problem, but no, he's a good father. He's sweet to his daughter. And, there was a moment at the beginning of the movie where he yells at his daughter, but that's just because she was being silly and was like playing around in like the street. And it was like, okay, that's just a father's duty to, put their kid on their ass when they're doing something stupid. And I wish that there was something more to his character that really made us gravitate towards that idea of that people really do change rapidly in front of us when they start doing things that aren't typically what they do as a person. And I think that was my biggest issue. There would have been such a bigger emotional punch if they had just given him a character trait that made his family see him for the monster that he truly is, a werewolf or whatever, the Wolfman. Maybe that's just my opinion, and maybe people saw things differently when you're watching this movie, but I was not blown away with that idea, because the way that Leigh Whannell wrote and did it in The Invisible Man, making this stalkery thing like attached onto the idea of the Invisible Man, was amazing, was perfect. It was a great idea, because it actually stuck with that concept and really did everything in its power to make it that much hard-hitting. But Wolfman just didn't do that for me. And I wanted it to do more than it did, but honestly, it was just like just a character changing, and there wasn't a moment where I was like even feeling bad for the character. Like I didn't have like that level of sympathy that I wanted. I mean, yes, it was very, very, very sad seeing this like helpless dad, this poor father and husband that is seemingly a good man turn into this monster. That was hard to see, and maybe that's what this movie was going for, but I think that leans more into just the whatever, the spiritual aspect of there being an actual wolfman monster, and then just at random point you just start turning into this werewolf. And I think it is more on that idea rather than it being this idea of someone changing rapidly in front of us. Maybe I went on a tangent there, but that was just my opinion on the whole Wolfman transformation. Now, this movie does fall under that January movie release date problem, in which, you're either going to have a really good movie get released in January and you weren't expecting it, or you were expecting the movie not to be that great and the movie ends up not being that great. In this case, the movie was fine. The movie was good. Not great, not amazing, but the movie was good. And I think that when it comes down to it, I was a little bit disappointed in the final product, but not disappointed to the point where I would never see myself watching this movie again. I would definitely watch it again. I think Christopher Abbott, Julia Garner are great, and I think that for the most part, a fine movie. If you're a fan of Wolfman and the transformation kind of stuff, if you really, really, really love the 1940s movie and can't see yourself watching anything that's different from that, you might not like this movie because it's not like the Wolfman from 1940. I would say that the Invisible Man from a few years ago, 5 years ago, is a lot more to that point of it being similar to the classic movie, but also being something modern and different. Wolfman just wasn't that. And I think it actually, unfortunately, might be my least favorite of Leigh Whannell's, but still not a bad movie. So if you were excited to go see this movie, I still definitely recommend going to see it. I don't think you'll hate it, but you might be disappointed. That's just my opinion. But yeah, that'll bring us to the end of my review for Wolfman. I think it was a fine movie, a little bit disappointed, but let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments below. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. But that brings you to the end of the video. I appreciate every single one of you. And remember, your movie moment is right around the corner. See you in the next video.